first thing I want to do, I know most of you probably don't care much about this, but we're all here because we need to know it, right? So I want to find out a little bit about everybody's background. Who here is a professional photographer already? Good. Who here is an advanced amateur or a hobbyist? Good. That's about half-half. Who here works in some other aspects which includes VR photography, like you're a multimedia producer or whatnot? Okay. Good. Some of you do both. And what am I missing? Who else is here that I don't know about? Student. Okay, that's great. Good. Anybody else? Oh, great. I like this guy. I want to talk to him later. I'm sorry. And a complete idiot. Okay, good. So basically, we'll talk a little bit. First of all, I'm not going to answer every question you have about running a business. We can't do that in an hour. We certainly can't do it in less than that. I may create more questions in your mind than we answer here today, and that's a good thing because that's what you need to do to be in business. How many of you are actually making money? You're getting paid professionally for doing, no matter how small or large, for doing any sort of VR photography? Good, good, most of you. I like that. Excellent. Great. No, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you, though. You are, but nobody else. Thanks, Mike. How many of you are based in the US? And how many outside the country? Okay, so those of you who are outside the country, some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is primarily US based and the business stuff you have to do here. So you guys can ignore that part and I'll just talk to the US people. Let me give, no, that's not what I want to give. I have handouts. We're going old school today. I'm going to do chalkboard, no PowerPoint presentations, because if you're at UC Berkeley and you're sitting in hard chairs, we're going to use the chalkboard today, all right? And I don't want anybody falling asleep in the dark, so I want to be able to see you all. So the first thing when you're setting up a business or you're deciding whether you want to even go into business, is you need to decide what your business is. What business do I want to be in? What services am I going to offer? What's my market? What products do I want to sell? And most importantly, for most of you, or most of us, is how much should I charge, okay? How many of you have a good handle on what you should be charging for your services? Okay, we have, 60 to 70 professional photographers in here, people who are making money, but nobody, well, 6 of you, know how much you should be charging, okay? So we'll spend a little bit of time on that as well. Just to direct you, and I put this on your handout, on the first page of the handout, we have on the vrphotography.com website, which I run, a whole bunch of information on business practices. And there's a calculator, which I'll get into in a little bit there, on how to determine your fees. And there's also just some question and answer stuff on how you go about determining how you do these things. So please delve into the vrphotography.com website. Virtually all the information and all the stuff there is free. We've got some very nice sponsors who have helped out with it, so please utilize that. There's actually a forum where you can go and ask a panel of experts questions. Some of them are sitting in here. Janie's here, Juke is here, I think. So please feel free to take advantage of that. And then finally, you need to determine, you need to know everything that you're going to do to make your business viable compared to running a hobby. Now, we all need to make money, whether we're doing a hobby or whether we're running a business, because you can't keep a business going if you're not making a profit, if you're not making income that can support not only yourself, but your business. Now, one of the tricks that I learned a long time ago, I was told by some photographer who had far more experience than I was, who said, keep a list right next to your telephone so that when you field all these phone calls that come in, keep a list of all the equipment that you just bought in the last year with its amount, with its dollar amounts. Below that, add all the equipment, the new lenses, the cameras, the computers, whatever, that you want to buy in the next year. And when that phone rings and somebody says, can you do this shoot for $500, look at that list and see how much it's going to cover. And you thought, well, no, I can't do that shoot for $500. I'm sorry, it's 10 days worth of work, and I've got to pay, all this stuff. So keep your goals in perspective, but do it with dollar figures or pound figures or euros, whatever it is. So you always have that reference point. And we'll get into business planning a little later, which takes it to a little further extent. So the first thing you need to do when you are trying to figure out how much to charge and what you're worth is to figure out your cost of doing business. They call it CODB, or cost of doing business. There is a free calculator on the vrphotography.com website, which will take you through this whole thing. But we're going to go into some high-tech chalkboard work here now. And I'd like each of you, or as many of you as can, to give me a list of the items that you would have as your expenses in a year. What things do you have to cover in costs when you're in business? Just shout them out and I'll write them down. Salary. Salary is the first one. Okay, good. I'm going to put that over here. Can everybody see that okay? Is that big enough? Okay. Utilities. What is that? Utilities. Good. Go ahead and shout them out to me. Okay, rent. So, space. How about equipment rental and office? Or, oops, equipment. Okay, advertising. Good. Insurance. So let's do phone. That's separate from utilities that we have up here. At least I always keep it separate because it's such a big amount. What else? Travel, okay. Depreciation, that's a tricky one. Who said that? Good. It's a very necessary one, but it's a little bit tricky because it's something that you write off, but you're not actually seeing and go out the door. It's not something you're paying on. But anyway, I'm going to put that over here. That's a very good one. Keep it in mind. Good. Okay, maintenance. Okay, education, I'm going to say. Somebody said training. Hang on a second. I'm trying to catch up with you. Legal. That usually goes under advertising. As if you have professional fees, that's good. Good. Here, I'm going to go back over here. Hang on a second. Salary. Okay, so that was a good one. Entertainment, in case you need to entertain clients or have meals. Forget how to spell here, sorry. Supplies. Was that Janie? That was Janie. Good, thank you. Okay, so somebody mentioned salary over here. Were you talking about your salary or staff salaries? I was talking about everybody. Okay, so salaries. Very good. Including yourself. Anyone else? Hardware, software. I think we got, oh, that's a good one. I don't think we have it up there. Hardware, software. Do we have equipment? Oh, very good. Thank you. Taxes, good. Okay, permits and fees, which includes licenses. Licenses. Any others? Well, we can stop here. Okay, there's one other one. What was that? I'm sorry, again? Pension plan. Okay, good. Retirement. That's a good one. Thank you, Joke. Very good. Thank you again. You've been to this before, haven't you? So yes, profit is a very important one, as well as salaries. Okay, now who knows what profit is? Is that what you have left over at the end of the year that you pay yourself? No. Salary is what you pay yourself, and you have to include salary in your expenses. You have to include your own salary, because if you say, well, I'm going to wait until the end of the year, I'm going to take money out, my accounts through the year as I need it, and that's my salary, you're going to cheat yourself, and you're going to wind up spending money on other things that you absolutely need or have to have, and you're going to forfeit your salary. Now, your salary may be $100 a month, if you're not relying on this for your living. It may be less than that if you're doing this as a hobby. So as a hobby, some of these things, can go out the window, but most of them are still going to apply. You want to be able to cover that nut or to crack that nut that you're putting out there every year. The money that you're spending, you need that covered coming in. So what we do, and I of course don't have room on this, but is on each of these you fill in an amount. You fill in an amount that you'll either know from your past history, because you've been in business for a year or more, or you estimate it. So you look at the whole list and come up with more of these than we have up here. Just think of all the things that you're likely to have to spend money on or want to spend money on, and come up with a list. Put numbers in each one that you're going to estimate. They're going to change. It's okay. These are just estimates. And then add them all up. Once you get that, and you get that number, and you will be surprised at how high it is. You may think that your hobby is costing you $5,000 a year, but actually you're committing about 15 or 20 or more without really knowing it, because you're buying, well, nobody buys film except me anymore, but you're buying film, you're buying digital media, you're buying a new computer, you're buying another lens, you're updating your camera, you're having to pay for whatever, your travel to go shoot. All of this is going to cost you a fair bit of money. It's a lot more than we think. And we want to try, as a hobbyist, to cover that. And if you're in business, you want to cover that and lots more. So I was asking earlier about profit, and about who knows what it is. Profit is actually the money that you need to have at the end of the year to put back into your business. It's not whatever's left over. It's what you plan for. It's a percentage. You say, I want to make a 10% profit over all my expenses, including my salary at the end of the year, because my business needs to grow. I need to have that much more money to put back into my business so that it can grow. So don't confuse profit with your salary or what you make as a sole proprietor. Yes?
So you use that as the amount of capital you need, like liquid capital you have on hand?
Not really, because profit can be, it can be invested in other things, or, I guess you could look at it that way, but don't get caught into the trap of believing that, one of these categories or one of these things, particularly as it relates to paying yourself or investing back in your company or your hobby or your business, is the same as the other. So I can just merge them together and they'll be fine. Don't do that. Keep them separate and keep track of them, because that will be very important. So the calculator that's online, the Photo Business Fee calculator, is free. I did a printout just so you guys know what's on it. I didn't want to give these to you before we did this exercise, because it has all the answers on a bunch of different categories. But anyway, take it home with you, have fun with it. You can fill it out. You don't need a computer calculator to do this. You can do it on a spreadsheet, but you have to do this for your business and for your hobby. Otherwise, you will never have a handle on how much it's costing you to be in business or to do this endeavor. Somebody move this? Oh, you moved that, huh? So, okay. So the bottom line then is this formula that's up top, is your income, is your revenue, all the money coming in is your revenues, minus all these expenses down here. And that's your income, okay? And this is what you will report on your Schedule C for taxes, for federal taxes, and your state taxes and everything else. And that's the formula that you have to remember. Everything that goes out has to be covered by revenues that are coming in. And you want more. You want more revenues than that, okay? if you have questions along the way, please feel free to jump in because I think we're fine on time and all. So what do you need to operate a business? You want to be in business, you want to do it for real. You don't just want to dabble and say, well, you know, I'm kind of in business and sometimes I'm not in business and maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's not. Commit to it. It doesn't have to be a full-time business. It doesn't have to be, you know, just the most intense thing where you know, you have to make $100,000 a year profit. Set your own goals, set your own targets. Say, what am I in this for? What am I doing? What's my market? Who am I wanting to address? What am I wanting to get out of it? And set yourself up so that you're official, you're in business. One of the first things you'll need to do this is a business license, at least here in the United States. I'm sure it's similar in Europe and elsewhere. But if you're going to run a business, you're going to need to run it properly, and that means you need to do all the filing that's necessary. This is a pain in the butt. But guess what? Everybody has to do it, okay? So you'll want to, usually it's with your local town or your city, wherever you live, get a business license. And where I come from in San Carlos, right across the bay here, it's I think $115 a year for sole proprietorship. You pay, that's your business license, okay? If you are doing business under a fictitious name that's not your own, for instance, mine is Photography by Scott Highton or Virtual Reality Photography by Scott Highton. If I set it up as Virtual Reality Photography, I need to file a fictitious business name, okay? It's very easy. You go down to your county courthouse and you know, you ask them for the form, you fill it out, you pay them, I don't know, $45 or whatever it is, and boom, you're done. You now have a fictitious business license. You can take that to a bank and they will let you open a checking account with that business name on it instead of your own. Okay, it just makes you official. What you have done, though, in doing that, and this is the right track to go on, is you've triggered a whole series of communications that's going to happen with all the other federal and state agencies around. They talk to each other. And they say, oh, Scott Highton filed a fictitious business name. Where's his income tax form that shows he's in business, he's making money from his business? So the state will check that out. The feds will definitely check that out. The IRS will say, you know, 2 years ago, this guy filed a fictitious business form. He says he's in business, but he's not filing business taxes. Boom, they're on you, okay? So be aware, you're committing now. And you can always, you know, say, hey, I'm out of business and you know, disband your business. But all these agencies will communicate with each other. Sales tax. How many of you collect sales tax here in the United States? On the work that you do, the services and the products you offer. Okay. More of your hands should be going up, okay? Because if you have a fictitious business name, if you have a business license, if you're filing Schedule Cs with your federal or your state taxes, you better be collecting sales taxes, okay? In California, they target photographers a lot. Yes?
In North Carolina, from what I understand, based on conversations with tax office, if you deliver images electronically,
Yeah.
you are exempt from
Yeah.
sales tax.
Okay. Every state has different sales tax laws, okay? The last I heard in California, that's sort of true. The exemption that we have is if you deliver it via the phone lines or by FTP, you don't have to collect tax. If you deliver a DVD or a CD-ROM, that's tangible personal property, and you have to, you know, collect the tax and pay it to the state. So here in California, it's the Board of Equalization. And again, don't call them on the phone if you have a question. I mean, you can, and they're very good. They will give you answers. But if they audit you, you need to have a written ruling. And the state of California, and I suspect most every other state, is very good about this. You write them a question very clearly. I have this particular situation. I shoot VR photography. I deliver, you know, panoramic prints to some clients in state. I deliver some to clients out of state. I deliver some files electronically over the phone lines. I deliver some files in state, you know. Just give them every example you can think of. They will send you a written ruling back saying, this is how you charge tax for this, you don't charge tax for that, et cetera. You pay tax, sales taxes on these things when you buy them. They're very good about that. They take about 4 to 6 weeks to do it. But when you get audited, and most of us will, I've been audited by the the Board of Equalization on sales tax here in California, if you have all that in your file, even if what that says is wrong according to the current rules, if you've got that in writing, they will say, okay, you've got a written ruling, you're fine in that. No fines, no extra, you don't owe anything backwards. If you don't have it in writing, what's that? Not there? Okay, well, yeah, like I said, this is just US and perhaps just California because every state is different. So if you don't have a written ruling, you haven't taken the time, but you've called on the phone and yeah, this guy Bob told me I didn't need to charge tax, doesn't matter. If you didn't follow the written rules, which none of us can understand directly, then you will owe whatever fines or penalties they want to do. Yes?
Am I correct in saying, if you're in business and you're registered with your state and you have a sales tax, you still have to have a sales tax identification number, regardless of what you're selling is tax exempt or not?
I don't want to answer that authoritatively because it depends. It depends on your business, what you're selling. If you are buying materials, like a lot of us used to buy film that we would resell to our clients, on the processing, and we would get a resale license from the state of California or whatever state you're in, and that you could present to the film shops or the camera stores that you were buying stuff from, saying, I'm reselling this, I'm collecting the tax, therefore I don't have to pay it. If you do that, you better have a number and have been in touch.
Taxable in California?
Yes, sometimes they are. They are.
So if you're a car, you're providing a service and it's taxable.
Yeah, in California, again, every state's different, but in California, and then this is only from 3 or 4 years ago when I last, got a ruling and last went through stuff. If you deliver everything, and again, we only collect tax when we sell to clients inside California. If it's outside California, we don't have to collect tax. If you deliver a tangible product, a slide, a roll of film, a CD-ROM, DVD, whatever, to a client in California, you have to collect tax on everything. So you can't just break it out and say, hey, that DVD-ROM cost me $1.29, so I'm going to charge $1.29, percentage of tax on that. No, if it's a $3,000 shoot plus the $5 you charge for the DVD or whatever it is, you charge tax on $3,005, the whole thing, okay? Because they want their money, They're entitled to it. They build our roads and all the other things too. So.
If the DVD would remain your property, and you just...
Yeah, we went through that at one point too. Yeah, it says, well, I'm just loaning it to them. I'm delivering it to them. They're going to return it. It's like my film. I gave them film, a slide or whatever, or 1,000 slides, and they're returning them to me because they're mine when I'm done. But no, you delivered tangible property that you can touch or see that way. So, yeah. Any other questions on that real fast? Okay. I'm sorry, yeah.
I guess I'm being a little arrogant, but I consider what I do service, and then I shoot, process, and upload to my server the zip file. I simply send them a link, and they're going to retrieve.
Right. So where do you live? Colorado. Get in touch with your Colorado Sales Tax Board. Get their rules on it because they're completely different than ours. We have. I've been involved in ASMP, the American Society of Media Photographers, for a long time. We've got 6,000 photographers, mostly in the U.S., around the world, but around the world as well as members. And every state is completely different in their sales tax rules. There's some overlap, but they all have different setups.
I've gotten different answers from the local cities as well.
Yeah.
They have their overlapping.
Get it in writing. That's all I can say, is if you have it in writing, you're pretty good. So we've gone through all the forms and the agencies you need to be in touch with. The next thing is your paper trail. Again, you want to have everything in writing, including your dealings with your clients, okay? There are 4 main forms that I use in my business. Oops. Sorry, do I have to reboot for that? That was a little crash there. They are, what are they? Oh, estimate. Oh man, what are they? I'm drawing a blank here. Yeah, assignment confirmation, invoice delivery. Okay, I remember now. It's coming back to me. So there's an assignment confirmation, invoice, and a delivery memo. In addition to these, you have things like model releases or photo releases, property releases and stuff. These are the main ones that you want to have set up for your business. Estimate is pretty obvious. You know, you're giving an estimate of what it's going to cost. My estimates have a little box down at the bottom of the, and again, we've got samples of these from like 3 different photographers, John Greenlee and another guy as well as myself on the website. So you can go see examples. But my estimate and my assignment confirmation in particular has a box at the bottom with a signature line and a date. So that once you've given them an estimate, and they go in this order, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, they either look at it and go, oh my God, there's no way we can afford this, or you know, they say, we'll negotiate, and then you get to, yes, we're going to go ahead with the deal, with the shoot. And at that point, your assignment confirmation follows. Your assignment confirmation should look identical to your estimate with whatever numbers needed to be changed on it. So if you estimated, you know, your total came out at, $5,500 for a shoot, and they said, well, we're going to have to drop this, this, and this, and you come out with $4,500. You change the numbers so that it matches what they want, and then you send them the assignment confirmation, which they sign and fax back to you, or mail back to you. You can send it as a PDF form. There are all sorts of ways to do it. You want it in writing. You want a signature on it. You want to make sure that they agree with what you understand they're wanting you to do for the shoot and what they're going to pay for. Because it ends all conflicts when they come up. And there are misunderstandings all the time. With clients, well, they thought that I was only, I was going to shoot this and this and this for them, and I really only thought I was going to shoot this. Or the price, I was going to charge for post-production, and they thought I wasn't, that it was included. Putting it in writing makes it clear. You should not be scared of putting it in writing, giving them assignment confirmations that they have to sign. Have many of you have had the oil changed on your car in the last 6 months? Okay. How many of you had a contractor come to your house to do work? Okay. You get the oil changed on your car, you sign a 2-page agreement. This is what I understand. Most of us don't read it. Yeah, sure, just go ahead, $39.95, do my oil change. Okay. Contracts are a fact of life in our everyday business. Okay? In everything we do. They're not threatening to your clients. What they're doing is they're letting the client know what your understanding is of the assignment or the agreement, and giving them the opportunity to agree or disagree with it. If they disagree, you change whatever needs to be changed, you negotiate it out, and then you agree on it. Now you've got something in writing that if somebody comes back 6 months later and says, why did I get this invoice that was more than I expected, or how come this didn't happen, or how come this happened and I didn't like it, you've got it in writing that you can both refer back to. You're much less likely to wind up in court or angry with each other. You're most likely to keep that client as a client. So once you have the assignment confirmation, you do the job, of course, you send an invoice, which then has all the same information. It probably looks like the same form, but it says invoice at the top instead, and itemizes all your actual expenses or the actual things you're charging for. Then when you deliver the material you're going to deliver, and this is a little less important today since we're doing it electronically most of the time, but when we delivered film or we delivered DVD, and CD copies of files, you wanted to have a receipt for that delivery. And that's what the delivery memo is. Again, there are examples of them on the website that you can go find. But it's something they sign, that they send back to you, hopefully, and then it means that they have received what you've sent them, and they agree to all the terms, the same terms that you had on the estimate, the assignment confirmation, and the invoice. So it's very clear. And you will keep your clients much happier. You will keep your business much happier. Your spouse is much happier because you're not, pulling your hair out over all these problems. So do keep up with that paperwork. Excuse me. You can get lots of good advice from other photographers, from other people in business, but when it comes to legal and accounting issues, please consult professionals, okay? Spend whatever, small amounts of money it might be for an hour with a lawyer. Get an accountant to look over what you're doing and just say, am I doing it right? Just get a brief look at it so that you're not relying on my advice, which may or may not be right. I'm not a legal professional. I'm not an accountant. Make sure you go to pros and check on things. Most importantly, don't try to fly under the radar. I've gotten a number of emails from photographers who are asking for business advice. And they say, I've kind of been flying under the radar. I do this work and I get paid for it, but I don't file taxes and stuff like that, and I'm not really in business. If you're getting paid, you're in business, okay? Make sure you're following the regulations that you need to, because it's very expensive when you get caught. And because all these various agencies do talk to each other and they do share their databases, you will get caught eventually. So don't do that. It's not good. Yeah.
Spot, even for your first job, or you're want to see, how much time it really takes to
Right.
go to.
Right.
Even for, Mr. Obvious, the direct operating his first paying job, I should still go through and file all the paperwork.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. That first few projects or whatnot, when you're just getting into it from a hobby or whatever. But you do need to do it. I mean, you may not get caught the first time, but at some point, and keep in mind that when a corporation or a company, even an individual, hires you and they write off the expense that the money they paid you because it's a business expense, that goes and gets filed with their taxes.
So I can do as an independent contractor, the same way I'm doing your job.
Talk to your accountant and your legal. Again, there are a whole set of rules on what qualifies as an employee versus an independent contractor. And those are questions that I can't answer for you because I don't know your business, and I shouldn't be answering them anyway. You need to take care of that. But don't resist the urge to fly under the radar. I recommend that you go through the exercise of creating a business plan. Now, business plans, you get these books, and there are lots of them out there, which tell you it's a whole book, where it tells you how to make a business plan, how to create it. You don't have to do that unless you're going to do this as a very serious business, and usually you're going to a bank for a loan, okay? But the exercise of thinking through everything that they tell you to do in creating a business plan is really good. So do it on your own. You may not be under a deadline to get it in for a bank loan application, but go through that exercise and update it regularly. You should have in your business plan your 1-year goals, your 5-year goals, maybe your 3-year goals in there. Look at those every 6 months or every year and say, am I making those? Am I getting as much income as I thought I would? Do I need to adjust this? Do I need to be spending more on marketing and self-promotion? So you want to be looking at it regularly and modifying it. Okay, don't let that become static. If you wrote a business plan 5 years ago, you haven't looked at it since, and you're going back to check it to say, oh, what was my 5-year plan? Am I making it? You've missed the boat on the business plan idea. Okay, so go through that exercise fairly regularly. Keep in mind that you will have, in business, you'll have a lot of ongoing fixed costs that aren't covered by clients. So how are you going to cover those when business slows down? Do you have a financial reserve somewhere? Do you have savings accounts? Don't start maxing out your credit cards just to get your business started. I always had a rule of thumb. I never bought anything, any camera equipments, computers, or anything else that I couldn't write off or pay for within a year. Some photographers do it in 2 years. I think that's too long. Some do it within 6 months. If I'm going to buy this lens, it needs to be paid for on this job that I'm buying it for. Okay, you have to justify it that way. With digital technology, it used to be when we bought film cameras and all, they could be expensive, but well, they were going to last for 10 or 20 years. With digital cameras, you're replacing them every 2 or 3 years. So don't go buy a Hasselblad, H3 and say, well, it's a $40,000 camera, but I'm going to, make it back over the next 3 years. It's going to be trash in the next 2. So don't fall into that trap. When you get into negotiation and actually setting your prices, you know what I didn't do on this on, in this calculator, when you go through it, you will get a total of all of your expenses for the year. Then what you have to do is to make an estimate based on how many days of work you're going to be working in that year. That's really hard when you're starting out. You know, am I going to get 10 days of paid work this year? Am I going to get 2? You know, am I going to get 100? But you've got to take that number, you know, the $20,000, the $50,000, whatever it is of expenses that you have for the year, and then divide it by the number of days you expect to work. Or that you can look at last year or the year before and say, you know, I consistently get 30 days of work a year or whatever it is. And that will give you the minimum daily rate that you have to make and that you're going to have to charge just to break even. Of course, you're going to want to make more than that if you can. And you will be surprised when you go through this exercise of actually filling in the numbers of how much you have to charge in order to break even. Ian was great. Are you still here, Ian? Yeah, when he was saying earlier, you know, I did this really cool project. I really wanted to do it. It was my first commission, and I lost money on it, you know, because we don't always think through what's going to be involved. What are my expenses going to be on it? You learn really fast. You know, the second commission comes like, whoa, I just tripled my fees, you know, to make it happen. So try to go through that exercise as early on as you can in your business when you're setting it up. Yeah. When you said that, I was oh, man. Because everybody does it. You know, it's something that, it's like learning anything. You know, you have to make a few mistakes. But try to get that out of the way and try not to make it too expensive the first time. Excuse me a second. So let's talk a little bit about negotiation. Negotiation is something that we all do daily. How many of you have kids? Yeah. You negotiate, you know, hourly, it seems like. If you're married or you have a significant other, you're negotiating. Where do you want to go for dinner tonight? I don't know. Where do you want to go for dinner? I want to go to this, you know, Italian. I want to go. That's a negotiation, okay? It's very easy to do. Don't feel threatened by it because we're all good at it. We all have a lot of practice. We worry about it when it's with a client and when it's over money. Don't worry about it. You need to represent your interests, what you need. The client needs to represent what they need, what they want, and you want to come together. That's what negotiation is. The best contracts, the best business deals are ones where both client and, you know, the provider or both parties come out as winners. They both feel like they got what they needed at a fair price. Not that they raked somebody over the coals, they got this really great deal, but that they were dealt with fairly and they got what they needed. So they're win-win. Stay with that. Now, much as, you know, I might go into a negotiation saying, gosh, I know what I need. You know, I know what I need to make out of this or what I want to get out of this. And I think I know what the client wants, and I want us both to be happy. That's not necessarily going to be what the person on the other side of the table is thinking. Okay? If they are a corporation or even an individual, they may say, I don't want to pay anything for this. I want to, you know, make this as cheap as possible. I don't care if you lose money on it. This is what I need to have happen. So you have to be your best advocate. You have to represent your own interests. Now, in doing that, the most powerful word, the most powerful tool you have in negotiation is the word no. Somebody is presenting something to you, it doesn't work for you, it's below your minimum that you have to make every day you're working, you've got to be able to say no. And if you are not in a position where you can say no, because you need this job so desperately, you know, any job is better than no job because at least I'm making money. If you can't say no, you will never get a good deal because you are in a weak spot. So make sure that you're easing into your business or your business is set up so you have the resources to be able to say no to bad deals because there are a lot of them out there and they will, you know, come at you a lot. There's a photographer that some of you may know, used to be very popular, very famous, named Jay Maisel, who was really big in advertising, and everybody knew him. You know, he's in New York, and he was back in the 70s and 80s and even the 90s. He was just doing a lot of work, and you saw his work everywhere, and everybody looked up to him and all. Well, I went to a seminar that he did about 20, 25 years ago for ASMP. And he was going through this litany about how you got to be able to say no, you got to be able to walk away from a deal. And somebody in the back, raised their hand and said, "But Jay, you can do that because you're Jay Maisel." And Jay shot him a look and said, "I can do that because I was doing that before I was Jay Maisel. Before I had that name recognition, I was standing up for my rights. I was willing to walk away when I needed to." So keep that in mind. You've got to be your best advocate. Clients will often tell you, "I've got $500 for this shoot," or "I've got $1,500," or whatever it is to do this shoot, and that's what I need you to do it for. How many of you would say, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that"? It's a one-day shoot. Would you do it? Yeah. Yeah. Choose a number. I don't care. But yeah, all that. You're right. Good. So, but how unusual is that in our normal lives that a client will tell a vendor how much to charge? But we as photographers let it happen all the time. A client says, "I've got $3,000 to do it. It's a month's of work, but you're going to get a lot of publicity, you get a lot of exposure." Yeah, a lot more work coming. We'll go into traps and things later on. Yeah, okay. So, if I could walk into a Mercedes dealership and say, "I got $2,500 and I want that new Mercedes right there," go for it, right? Because any sale is better than no sale. What do you think they do? They laugh me right out of the place, right? Any other business will do that. And certainly there's room for negotiation. Maybe a car dealership was not a good example because they have such high markups, but they'll come down. But most businesses, the person selling, the person providing a service is the one that sets the price. Okay, so don't let your clients tell you how much they'll pay. You can ask them how much their budget is and see if you can work out a deal, a way to do it that will fit in that. But don't present them with an estimate that says, this is going to cost $4,500 or $3,000 or whatever. And then have them say, "Well, I'm sorry, we only have $1,500. Can you do it for that?" And you say, "Well, let me think about it." And a day later you come back and say, "Yeah, I can do it for $1,500. You just told them that you had marked up your prices, 300% more than they needed to be. And you may be telling them that you're willing to lose money on this project because you want it so badly. So you've just thrown all your negotiation tools out the window. Okay? So figure out, do your cost of doing business, figure out what that bottom line number is, and don't go below it. Because if you lose money on every shoot, you're not going to make it up in volume. You're just going to lose more money. Okay? Good. I'm going to skip over a few things here. Let's talk about, yeah.
So if you're a new entrepreneur and you're trying to estimate the cost, you don't have the money you're supposed to have to support the business for 3 years, income that period. The small business administration period. What do you do? I mean, you have like a full-time job and you do your hobby while you're building your estate?
Yeah, there are thousands of different ways to approach it. Find one that works for you. Go slowly. I always say. Again, I'm aggressive when I do certain things, certain kinds of work. But in business, I don't want to ever overcommit. I have seen more photographers and more other business people go out of business because they built these big studios and they had these huge jobs coming in, and then they went away. And suddenly they were left holding the bag on these great big, rental fees for their studio or their mortgages, their equipment that they had invested in, and they can't sell it for a decent, it's like, and they're ruined. So go slowly. If you're starting out, nothing says you have to have a $100,000 business your first year. Commit to 5. Work a part-time job or a full-time job on the side and ease into it if you have to. If you've got a photography business already or something related and you want to start adding VR services, sell them in addition to the services that you're currently offering and build that part of your business up that way, okay? don't, I hate seeing photographers in particular go out and max their credit cards and invest all this money to set up their business and then realize, oh, there was no market for what I was, my area, my region didn't have a market for that. Now what do? I've got equipment that's, I've got $30,000 of equipment that's depreciating and I've got to pay for it and there's no money coming in. Go slowly. Find a way, whatever works for you to get in. Yes, Ian?
I only went full-time freelance Easter last year. So for 2 years after the garden stream, I was still part-time technician. So I had constant income coming in that I could depend on.
And that's not unusual. That's not unusual. When you're doing your cost of doing business calculations, I'm sorry. Ian was just saying that, what was it? It was 2 years between the time you did the first commission to the time he actually decided to do it full time. So how many other projects did you do in between then? I mean, I don't want to ask you how much money you made in the meantime, but what was the scale?
One more large commission, the whole of the GNT commission, and a couple of smaller jobs as well.
So I got to tell you, were you working part-time? Yeah. I got to tell you, as I've been a self-employed photographer for a little over 20 years. During that time, I've done some motion picture work that was under, employee stuff for about 6 years. But over that period, most of the time, I've been a self-employed photographer. If you like highs and lows, huge peaks and huge valleys of income and business, it's a great thing to be in. But if you can't tolerate that, the highs are very high, the lows are very low, and sometimes very long. But I got to tell you, when I'm down here with income and projects coming in, and I look at people who are working staff jobs and have a regular paycheck every 2 weeks, I'm just going, oh, what would I give for that right now? So, don't give that up until you're really sure and really comfortable that you can make a go of it. We'll talk a little bit about marketing and how we get work and good ways to do it. Let me just make sure I'm not skipping anything important here. What's the number one way that you all get business? What is it? Websites, your direct mail pieces, word of mouth, referrals. Good. That's exactly what I find. Yeah. So referrals are they're almost the most guaranteed way to get new work, to get new business, because they come from people that you've already done work for. They're already satisfied with what you've done. So when they tell somebody else, hey, this guy, Scott, he does a pretty good job and he's pretty fair, that's great. I can't get a better job source than that. So work those. Yes?
Because where I am, because I do VR for real estate.
Okay.
Realtors don't tell anybody.
Right.
When they find a good thing,
Right.
they tell absolutely nobody.
Right. Okay. You're different. Okay. Real estate is a beast like nothing else I've ever seen. And I don't work in real estate because the money is so low generally. But it's we all spend, when we buy a house, it's the largest purchase we're probably ever going to make in our lives. And the money that is made from it outside of the realtors is minuscule. And realtors are not willing to spend anything on anything other than what they're doing. So they won't, if you tell them, yeah, I can do a really nice house tour for $1,000, they're going, see you later. They want the $59.99 one or the $99.99 tour. So there's not a lot. It's just a different beast. And if you can make money at it, and you can figure out a way to do it, more power to you. But I know very few photographers that can, just because of the nature of that business. So let me know how it works for you. And if you find a successful way to do it, I'd like to know about it, but don't share it with anybody else, because it'll go away for you otherwise. Okay. So referrals are probably the best source. A website is probably your next best source in today's market. If you have a good website, make sure that you work all your meta tags and you build it so it's got lots of links and all, so that it hits all the search engines properly and you get ranked high. And you'll notice that all these things build on each other. You know, the website supports your referrals. The referrals support your website. Your search engine standings support your website, which then, you know, supports the amount of business you get in. You do direct mail pieces, right? How many of you send out postcards or some sort of printed piece to potential clients? Okay, don't overlook those now. That's the way everybody used to do business. But you send out a card regularly that has your website URL on it, you know, and says something about your business, shows a single sample of your work. It's very simple, and you send it to a targeted audience, 50 to 100 people max, okay? And you send it out regularly. That will support people going to your website and seeing lots more work. That will support, you know, the search engines, the popularity of your website. It all builds on itself, and you want to be working all of these different angles to bring business to you. How many of you use the phone to make direct cold calls or direct calls to potential clients? Good. That's really hard to do. It's really hard to get on the phone and try to sell yourself to potential clients. You have to be careful with it. You don't want to overdo it, okay? But again, that supports your direct mailing. That supports your website, you know, everything else. It all works together. Take advantage of everything you can. Don't go out and buy a list of 5,000 potential contacts from some of these list companies and then try to send cards to everyone, because you'll run out of money in the first 2 or 3 mailings, and then you'll be done. You won't have anything left. So target your clients or your potential clients to people that you know are going to be interested in what you have to sell or what you have to offer, and follow up with them regularly. There's a rule of thumb that a potential client needs to see or hear your name in relation to what it is you do 8 to 10 times before they'll remember it. Before they'll remember, oh, Scott Highton, oh, Janie Fitzgerald, you know, oh, Juke Young. You know, I remember that guy. He had some VR stuff somewhere. 8 to 10 times. So come up with ways to make that happen. It doesn't have to be 8 to 10 postcards in the mail. It doesn't have to be, you know, 8 to 10 phone calls. Use a combination of them. If you're fortunate enough to have somebody write something about you, I had somebody did an article on me in Rangefinder magazine a while ago. Get reprints. Has a bunch of, you know, my Panorama work in it. It talks about, you know, so I sent this out to everybody I knew. Everybody I didn't know, everybody who might ever hire me. Because it was, you know, somebody was saying something nice about you. So take advantage of all those things. Use them together. What about email? How many of you use email to reach potential clients? Scares me when I hear that, because email is perceived, unsolicited email is spam. You know, if somebody sees your email, oh God, I don't ever want to hear from them again. You know, put them on my block list. So be really careful. It can be effective, but be really careful that you don't overdo it, and make sure that your potential clients have a way to opt out of your list. I'm going to try to wrap up here, so hang on a second.
Now, outside the US, be careful with phone calls as well. Because in Britain, there are effectively anti-spam things, and you put your name on the list, and if any company calls your number as a cold call, you can potentially be prosecuted.
Yeah, just be really careful with email. It's very effective to follow up if you've already made the contact, but I'd be cautious using it as an introductory means. Now, my last comment will be, there's another photographer that I knew who used to work in Philadelphia back, I don't know, in the 70s or so. And he used to do, he would intentionally, you know, he'd send out his brochures, his mailers, you know, everything he could, you know, regularly, every month or two. And he would arrange to call potential clients at lunchtime at their offices, because he knew he'd be out to lunch. This guy's name was Dick Weisgrau. And so he knew they'd be out to lunch, but their message machine would be on. Hello, this is Dick Weisgrau. I was just calling to, you know, I sent you a brochure last week. That way he wouldn't have to talk to him. But he could get his name back in front of them again. They say, oh, that name Dick Weisgrau. Yeah, I remember that guy. There was a card 2 weeks ago. Okay, that's kind of sneaky, but, you know, maybe it'll work, or some aspect of that. Be creative. Use as many different ways as you can to bring this together. I think I've got to wrap it up. We can do questions, you know, later this evening or whatnot. There's a lot more to go into, but we can't learn everything about business in an hour. So.